3rd, it's time to start talking budget. That's not the great way to start off the day, but they're going to have to do that, and it's coming up, and it's a big deal. I want to welcome Donna Rain-Shostak, Treasurer for 3rd, to the program. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
It's the biggest thing you guys do, and it's probably the most miserable process, I guess, or the most cumbersome and taxing, so to speak,
It is, and that's what I really wanted to share with everybody today. It's January. It's the beginning of the year. We've just started paying the monthly assessment for the 2025 budget, and I kind of want to sort of walk our folks through the process that we do, because it's sort of this mystery, and work is going on all the time, always with the goal of maintaining our wonderful community at the lowest possible price for everybody. So I just thought it might be kind of fun for everybody to see how that works.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of the budget year, do you guys do a fiscal, or do you do it? Does it start in July 1st? Or, okay.
No, it's January 1 to December 31 in terms of the budget year.
Right.
But the 2026 budget process is already underway, even though we're only in January of 25.
Right.
So I just thought I'd kind of walk through that and let people see what's really going on behind the scenes, so that next January they'll know how we got there.
So it starts with some committee meetings, basically, right? Workshops, board committees, and those kinds of things?
Yes, and the work, it starts really with the department heads from VMS, those folks who are involved in actually doing the work to maintain the community. And so they have workshops. Each of the departments have had workshops with our board committees, and kind of they share with the committee what they think their needs will be. The committee says what their goals are, and so together we work. And that's January. That's going on right now.
That's going
January,
on right
February. April, March, they kind of put things together. And by April, the department heads themselves, that's on the VMS side, develop a preliminary operating budget.
Okay.
By May and June, those are reviewed and presented to the boards, and that happens throughout the community, actually, not just 3rd, as version 1. By July, and we give feedback.
Sure.
The boards hear it, we look at it, and that's done as an open meeting, so everybody can come and hear where we are. We provide input, and by July, version 2 is presented to the board again. Look at it, work it, massage it a little bit, and by August, version 3 is presented, and again, at an open board meeting right here on TV6, as well as on YouTube, for those who missed the meeting live. And September, the business plan for the next year is ultimately adopted, and the assessment letters go out in November. So this is really an ongoing process all the time.
Right. Now, how do you inform yourself in terms of the starting point? Do you take last year's, do you usually take these workshops and the board, they take last year's budgets, they also know, hey, here's some things we know we have to do this year, we're going to be painting these buildings or those kinds of things.
That's the part that goes on in November, December of the preceding year. That's already happened.
Okay.
And that happens primarily with the department heads and the VMS side of it, because they know what has to get done.
Right.
We know what we'd like to get done, but they're the ones who know what has to get done.
So there's the annual maintenance things, or every 10-year, every 5-year maintenance kind of things that go on, and those are just the regular kind of, hey, this is going to be a big one. So,
and one of the biggest challenges, we have a lot of challenges, but probably one of the biggest challenges, we can control some things. We can decide to do things more quickly or more slowly. We can get one type of product versus another. But there are a lot of things we can't control, and it's really important that our members know that as well.
Right.
Because our hands are tied, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
And
so
that would be,
inflation is one, of course.
Which we've been living with for a while.
Right.
Regulations, and I purposely put organic waste up on the slide for folks, because that was when the state said we would be recycling organic waste. It was the city of Laguna Woods that entered into the contract with CR&R. So we had nothing to, we were handed a contract. This is what it is, and this is what you will do. So we already have two things that are a little challenging. And then there are utility rates and increases. And we've got water, sewer, electric. We can't do anything about the rates. But when I finish talking about the budget, we're going to move on to water a little bit, because there's something all of us can do when it comes to water. And then, of course, wages. There's minimum, whenever there's a minimum wage increase, That's what it is. And union contracts, although they are negotiated, and the folks here at on VMS do their best, but the contract is the contract. And of course, last but certainly not least, insurance rate increases.
Right. Now, there's always that struggle between the cost of everything and the residents wanting the maximum service available. We want the best, but we want to dig down to those things. So how much pressure do you guys feel? Like you said, there's fixed costs here. How much pressure do you feel to just constantly be looking for ways to trim and cut and find those things?
It is. It's let's say it's challenging.
Yeah, because people here are on fixed incomes. Obviously, it's a retirement community, so this isn't something I got a raise last year, I can afford this kind of stuff.
Exactly. And the other thing is we are advertised as and are considered the premier retirement community. You have to keep up standards there too.
Right.
And so it's always a constant struggle and challenge. But hopefully we've met it, and that's why I really wanted to go on to what can we do to help control costs, or at least be aware of them, so that we see what the challenges are. And probably the biggest thing is to ask our members to get involved. And that means attending mutual meetings. And on the slide, the word mutual is in small m, but in fact, that's because we share things mutually, but it's a capital M for Third Mutual as well. And they can do it so many ways. They can come to our meetings in the boardroom, look at Zoom live, watch it on TV6 where you repeat it, and ultimately on YouTube. We'd like them to be informed as best they can, and that means the town halls we have the fourth Wednesday of every month over at Clubhouse 2, and reading what comes from VMS, what's up in the village emails every Friday, and the president's regular emails. So there are lots of ways.
Right, and one of the things, in terms of getting folks involved, I mean, there is such a vast wealth of experience in this community. I'm surprised by when I sit here sometimes and I'll be talking to one of the guests and they say, oh, I used to do this, 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 and this, and I'm blown away by that. So by getting them involved, they can see maybe there's something they can bring their skills to, right?
They can, and we have advisors who work with our committees. We have to hold the number down just because the committees have to get done in a certain amount of time. But we really appreciate our advisors so much, and we rotate them so that lots of people can have a very active role in helping us. And at the board meetings, though, people are welcome to come up to the mic. There's open member comments always at every single meeting. So we really feel it's important. And before we leave the budget side of it, I do want to share with everybody that there are some things they can do, like getting involved in money-saving options.
Here we go.
About 25% of our members still pay their monthly assessment by check through the mail.
Oh, okay.
And there's a certain amount of processing. We have a processing charges associated, staff time, et cetera.
Right.
And so if they could opt for easy pay, and if people they can either do it online, or if they're uncomfortable, check with resident services and find out how to do it. And then what's interesting, we talk about opting out of mail documents. It sounds like you're not going to get anything anymore.
Right.
But in fact, they would go by email for those who are comfortable.
Right, they're getting them electronically.
It.
So real quick with the Easy Pay, is there a worry that they're going to charge me a service fee? Or is there what is the barrier there?
There is no barrier.
Okay.
The barrier has really been because it's electronic, and some folks are uncomfortable with that.
Okay.
Although it's more and more people are doing that. And so that would be the only concern. There is a charge when credit cards are used for things, just like that happens in most places.
Right, but if you're using it direct from your bank account or something like that?
But if you're just doing it from your bank account, there's absolutely no charge, and there's no staff time. I mean, it's just, it's a savings for everybody.
So if people have questions about that, maybe they should contact Third, help me have somebody maybe walk them through the process, because that could be the intimidation factor. I don't know how to do any of those things, that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's why I said, resident services would be there to help as well.
Okay.
So we would do that. So that's kind of the budget side. And I did mention that there is one thing in terms of utilities that we can do some things
and
about.
you serve on the water committee as well, right?
I'm actually chair of it.
There we go.
So it is a passion, and it sort of needs to be here in this part of Southern California, because it's actually water conservation is more important than ever. So I am chair of the Third Mutual Water Conservation Committee, and here in this part of Southern California, in South County, we have very limited resources. We know that California has recurrent droughts. The last 8 months of 2024 were a real challenge.
Right.
There was essentially no rain for 8 months. Last weekend was wonderful.
Yes, finally.
Yes.
But none of that water that falls here, can't really capture any of that. It just goes out to sea.
No, it waters the lawn and then it's gone.
It doesn't go into our, we don't have an aquifer down here or anything like that.
Absolutely, and you've come to one of my future points in just a couple of minutes. But,
sure.
And we call these mega droughts. You know, when you have 8 months of no rain, that's definitely not just a drought. It's a mega drought, and they could become a permanent feature because of the climate changes that we're seeing. And here in Laguna Woods, and I've put ETWD, El Toro Water District, in parentheses because that is our water department. It's where we get our water from, and they get it from Metropolitan Water District. We are totally dependent upon Northern California rainfall and the Colorado River. That's it. That's what we have. And the reason we have that, if we look on the next slide,
sure,
is that we have absolutely no access to reliable groundwater sources. We have no aquifers and nothing under our feet that's going to be reliable, and we have no large reservoirs or lakes, and virtually 100% of our drinking water, our potable water, is imported.
Right.
And it's very expensive to transport water hundreds of miles, and our third annual water bill is, it says $5 million, it's at least $5 million. It usually is over that.
So here's the thing, when you're in a situation where you have no other, I mean, like, hey, I want to change brands of toothpaste, I have options, I want to look for something cheaper. There's not a lot of choice when you're the buyer and there's only a single seller in that market. So what can be done in the community here to save money?
That's what we can do. And that's why I saved the best for last for a couple of reasons. You'll find out the second reason in a moment. But there is something we can do. Changing toothpaste isn't going to help.
It's probably not going to help.
but that annual bill of at least $5 million for Third Mutual alone is really dependent in good part on us. And so what can we do? Well, we've got two parts to our water bill. We've got landscape and we've got residential water. In Third Mutual, landscape water is separated from residential water. That is not the case throughout the village. But in Third Mutual, with the exception of gates 11 and 14 because of their geographic locations and other geographically related things like the big hill up to gate 14.
Right.
Because of that, they don't have it, but everywhere else, our landscape water is recycled water, which is wonderful. It certainly saves water and actually money as well.
Yeah, the cost for processing into potable water, right?
Right, and that's, thank goodness for our great relationship with El Toro Water District that we have that. There's also a fairly new sprinkling system, just really fully went into operation last year, that was from GRF. That was something they did and provided. That's one of the wonderful things about having that umbrella over us for facilities. And that system is so efficient. Used to be, you know, if it started raining and the landscape people weren't here, they'd have to drive over and find the spot that needed it, or if one sprinkler head was leaking and shooting water up, they would have to drive over and shut it off, and a lot of water got wasted in the process. Now, with the new system, not only is it more efficient and can really be well controlled, but they can control it, the landscape people control it from their phone. Perfect. So wherever they are, they know it's raining, or they get a call that a sprinkler head, they just shut it off immediately. So that's obviously transferred to a savings and an efficiency for us. And of course, working very hard on replacing turf with drought-tolerant plants. And you'll be hearing more about that all year. But on the residential side, that's where all of us, where the folks who live here and work here, get to play a role. And I think it's really important that we all be aware of how much water we're using. You know, it's so easy to turn on the kitchen faucet and turn away to get something, and the faucet's still running while you do that.
Right.
Turn it off. Shorter showers, I was amazed to learn that it could save as much as 2.5 gallons per person per minute.
Really?
Per minute in a shower, depending on the shower head you have. So obviously water-saving shower heads are important.
Yeah, those are important too.
Yeah, but you think about that, 2.5 gallons a minute saved, And not only is that water saved, but obviously, getting back to the budget, it's money saved.
That meter's not running.
It is not. So we have that. Car washing is not permitted in 3rd.
Okay.
Because, standing there with that hose just used to be Sunday afternoon. That was what we always did.
Putting on the driveway?
No. And then one of the things that I think most folks here are not aware of is that watering outside with the garden hose. The garden hose is attached to a spigot outside the structure, whether it's one of the condo buildings or one of the single level. That water looks like, it's outside, so you think it's landscape water. It is not. It's potable water.
Right, it's coming from the building.
It's coming from inside the building, and therefore it is residential potable water. So we're very concerned. We limit any watering with the hose to Wednesdays and Sundays in Third Mutual because of that. And we require that anybody using a hose have one of those automatic shutoffs. When you lay the hose down, it stops running.
Perfect.
So even that is a must and is important and something people can do.
Okay.
And just like the budget, getting involved.
Let's get people involved. How can we do that?
Well, since it's my passion and the other hat that I wear besides being treasurer, the Third Water Conservation Committee, we meet only quarterly.
Okay.
That's January, April, July, and October. It's always on the last Thursday of the month at 2 o'clock. And for those watching it live, today does happen to be the last Thursday of the month.
Here we are.
And at 2 o'clock this afternoon, not only are we having our meeting, but we have a very special guest. The general manager of El Toro Water District, Dennis Cafferty, is going to be coming and talking to us about something that I think's on everybody's mind right now. In light of the fires in LA, everybody's worried about what happens to the water in an emergency. So he's going to be sharing that with the committee today. Because we are so pleased to have him, that 2 o'clock meeting today is going to be held in the boardroom rather than in a smaller room.
Okay, good for folks to know.
Yes, and so anybody who can come out, and if not, I know that he will be willing. He has offered many times to come back, either to TV6 or to one of our meetings or even to a board meeting of any one of the mutuals or GRF here in the community. So there are lots of ways. Yes, there are things we can't do anything about, but there are some things that all of us working together can make a difference.
And getting involved is one of those key things that people can do. Speaking of getting involved, what got you started so many years ago in saying I'm gonna take my retirement and go to work?
I think I've just always been oriented towards serving. My career when I was working was as a healthcare professional. I was one of the first nurse practitioners way back when, probably before you were born.
Maybe.
But so service and working with people and doing what I could to help has always been important. And then the last position I had in my career after I gave up my practice was I was in nursing education, and I was Dean of Health Sciences over at Saddleback College, which again was service.
Right.
And so when I retired and was all dressed up with no place to go, I said, can I possibly help the community? And it's been a pleasure, and hopefully I am being a help.
Do you find that you're learning things still, like when you get into these, you dive into these budgets, you're doing all this water stuff, is it kind of an exploration and education for yourself?
It is. It is very much so. It's not just that, it's the education of how does it work, which we started with today, is how does the budget process work. So learning how things work. But because I'm there and can see what happens, like water, our water bill is part of our monthly maintenance, our monthly assessment fee. It's paid for in that bill. We don't see it. And if you don't see it, it isn't necessarily real. And
it's not top of mind.
In preparation for today's meeting, which is my first meeting as chair, returning to this role from having been on GRF for a while, and so coming back, my first meeting, I looked, and slowly, we haven't had a meeting of the Water Conservation Committee since last April, and all year long, very gradually and slowly, the water bill for residential water has been creeping up.
Okay.
And so I think that's called out of sight, out of mind.
Right. Well, we're going to get it top of mind for folks. I want to thank you so much from Third United, Third Mutual rather.
However, I have to tell you that United is always invited to any of our meetings.
It's a group event.
As is GRF, because we are all one community.
Well, thank you so much, Donna, for joining us today. You're watching This Day, folks. We'll be right back with more announcements. Stay with us.